starting. So for those of us who are on and everyone else that are joining in the next couple of minutes, welcome to Webinar 9 of Jewish Experiential Leadership Institute, Cohort 2. I'm talking about advocacy, and actually changed the title a little bit from the pre-webinar document to Advocacy and Building Consensus. That will be facilitated by our very own Dr. Jeff Kress, but with participation from all of you on today's webinar. What is our agenda for today? Do a welcome and do a little poll. We've been doing a lot of whiteboards to start off, but we're going to do a poll today. I'll mention Refuah Shalema in a moment. We'll hear a Devar Torah from Deborah Rothschild, and then we're going to get an introduction to the content on advocacy and building consensus. You'll notice that we're actually going to do, this is the first time in history, which is like the 20th webinar between the two cohorts or something like that. We're going to do two breakouts. We're going to break out once and come back, and then you're going to have different partners for breakout two. So if there's a last-minute change in partners based on who is or who is not at the webinar, I'll mention that just before the first breakout. So just you'll keep your other phone numbers handy and always be when to come back or not back. We'll check in after each breakout, and then we'll offer closing thoughts. And we're going to leave a good, make sure you can stay the whole time today, especially today, because I want to take a good 15 minutes. The pre-retreat booklet, or the retreat booklet, is out. Here's a peek of it. Back to the webinar, because I want to give a good 10 minutes or so to really explain the webinar, explain the booklet, and then send it to you in the post-webinar email, so you can take a good look through of what we're going to be doing in St. Louis, some of the pre-readings, a short pre-assignment, preparing for your progress reports on your implementation projects or your projects. So stay tuned for that. We'll start with a poll, something just to break the ice, as we like to do. Let's open a poll. So, what was your favorite part of the Hagim, or the holiday season? Hagim or Hag, holidays, or multiple holidays. From Rosh Hashanah to Simchat Torah is called the holidays. So what's your favorite part if you had to choose? Eating apples and honey, Rosh Hashanah. Fasting during Yom Kippur. Eating in the Sukkah, for Sukkot. Reading around with the Torah during Simchat Torah. Or assuming that most of us or all of us had significant time off, or at least off from our professional work, was that the number one? So I'll give you guys another minute or so, and just make sure that everyone. So just so you know, if you didn't already mute yourself, I'll be muting you. For that poll. All right, muted. Let's see. We have one person yet to complete it. So let me do that poll. If one person didn't get to do it, then continue with things. You might be able to see the poll, so share the poll results. So we got a lot of people. I think quite a majority that eating in the sukkah during Sukkot was our favorite. Certainly one of the most experiential pieces. A lot of experiential learning going on, I think, throughout the high holidays, or a lot of significant interaction with the community. Eating in the sukkah is certainly one of my favorites. And for the last couple of years, my wife and I built one in our backyard, which has been a lot of fun. So as we think about going from the high holiday season into our year, furthering our learning in this 57-75, or continuing on in the 2014, now 15 academic year. What you say, I'll go back to the agenda, a brief Refuah Shalema. So you may or may not know, but I was given permission by Jane to share that one of our wonderful JELI advisors, Jane Slotin, she's actually having a minor procedure today. She says okay for me to share. They found a cancer very, very in its early stages. So we should be very thankful that what we do today is happening at an early time, and we have confidence that she'll be back with us 100% when she's ready, and sooner rather than later. But I just wanted to share with the JELI community that if you have an opportunity to say, a prayer for healing, sometimes called a Misha Berach, or to wish someone a get well soon or a Refuah Shalema, return to strength. To find the opportunity to do that, as one of our members of our community, Jane Slotin, used that. So I wanted to just mention that to you. Obviously, folks that work with her as a JELI advisor, she continues to be that, but obviously it's going to take the next couple of weeks to do what she needs to do to strengthen and recover, and we'll keep you posted as she keeps me posted. Transition now to Devar Torah. We have Deborah Rothschild, our Sport and Wellness Director from the Addison Penzance Jewish Community Center of Silicon Valley. We all know Deborah. We all love working with her, as we all love working with all of you. Deborah, I have posted let me unmute you, and I posted your wonderful words on the screen. And once I do that, the floor is yours to share with us some words of Torah, some learning with us this morning.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Okay. The holiday of Sukkot is followed by Shemini Atzeret and then by Simchat Torah. Torah means rejoicing in the Torah, reminding us that the Torah is a never-ending cycle. On Simchat Torah, we read the last Torah portion and then proceed immediately to the first chapter of Genesis. One Simchat Torah evening, the Baal Shem Tov danced together with his congregation. He took the scroll of the Torah in his hand and danced with it. Then laid the scroll aside and danced without it. At this moment, one of his disciples, who was intimately acquainted with his gestures, said to his companions, "Now our master has laid aside the visible, dimensional teachings and has taken the spiritual teachings unto himself." Martin Buber. In the never-ending cycle of the Torah, people are continuously on their own pathway. I see my responsibility as a professional to where people are and support them along their never-ending growth pathway. I see JCCs as the place to put Jewish teachings into action, like Martin Buber suggests. Just as tradition on Simchat Torah functions as a great equalizer for all Jews, I see everyone who contributes to the success of a JCC professionals, board members, the JCCA, and other Jewish organizations like the Jewish Theological Seminary, stand in a circle. In the circle, we see the image of God in each other, and no one places judgments upon another. We're united in our mission. This and support makes others want to join our circle, want to be accepted and supported along their individual pathway. Whether it is in their Jewish identity, wellness, recreation, enjoyment of arts and culture, social groups, or the education of their children, people want to continuously learn and grow. Be strong, and we will strengthen each other are the words recited at the end of reading of each book of Torah, of the Torah. What means to one individual is very different from what it means to another. JCCs are a place people are accepted and supported for who they are. It is because of those who tirelessly dedicate their lives towards the success of the JCC that it can be a place to put Jewish teachings in action for infants to older adults.
Thank you so much. I think there's actually so much you say in this very brief and concise Devar Torah. I think one of the things that we try to respect and revere in the JELI program is that we come together as a group to learn together as a community. But each of you are going to take so much, hopefully will take so much out of the learning and the growth that we aim to provide, because you're all coming from different places. You all have different strengths, and you're all here for a little bit of a different reason, which might be a nice analogy or a nice mirror of the work of ACCs and a lot of Jewish communal organizations, where we have to meet people where they are and understand why they're in this place. And as you say, bring them together. So, Deb, thank you so much. I think I'll allow people, as we continue in transition, to talk about advocacy and thinking about who we're advocating to and the different constituencies that we're advocating to, how your words, how your learning comes into that conversation as well. So, Deborah, thank you so much. Kol HaKavod. This is a big deal when any one of our JELI fellows share words of learning. So thank you very much, and looking forward to many more Devar Torahs during our week in St. Louis together. Advocacy and Building Consensus with facilitator Dr. Jeff Kress, exclamation point, goals and big ideas. And we try to be as intentional as we can here in JELI, and we are, very intentional about putting this webinar right in that point of your projects where you're not only have really formatted it, but really trying to implement it. And there's a lot of people in your community that you want kind of on your boat. We want to examine advocacy and building consensus both as a skill and a process in order to strengthen our understanding of how we can advocate successfully for the issues we care about and the work that we do both personally and in our JCC work. And compare two biblical texts, which you've had a chance to familiarize yourself with, illustrate contrasting approaches to advocacy and some much higher up on the organizational chart. I'm going to pass the ball, literally, the metaphorical ball on WebEx, to Jeff. So I'll make sure you're unmuted. And looking forward to learning.
Yeah, okay, good. First, thank you, Deborah, for the Dvar Torah. It was wonderful and informative, and I particularly appreciate the image of the circle, which comes up so much around the high holidays, the circle of life, the circle of the seasons, the continuity, and I never made that connection to the idea of Simchat Torah, where the circle, again, you start the Torah, you end the Torah, but we also dance in circles, and I think that that's a wonderful image for the message that you gave. So thank you. And thank you, Mark, for the intro. I'm thinking of adding an exclamation point to my name on a full-time basis, and perhaps even changing my name to just an exclamation point. But we'll see what happens. We're going to talk a little bit about advocacy. And advocacy, just to kind of set the terms of the discussion, advocacy is a term that can be used in a lot of different ways. We have advocacy in politics. We have advocacy in law. And the way we're going to use it today is the idea that when we have an idea, a vision, something new we want to try, such as things that you're doing through JELI, you want to help make the case and gain support from others about the importance of what you're doing, and to get a certain amount of input, buy-in, and agreement about the importance and even just the logistics of moving things ahead. And as we plan our projects, we might think there are a number of people in and around our JCC that we're going to have to advocate to. We're going to have to make the case and convince about the importance of the project and the feasibility of the project. So just a quick question, show of hands, not show of hands, but raise your hand if you have an answer. Who's someone who you imagine, not their name, but position, that you imagine having to do some advocacy for your project or for your JELI work? Who you have to, in order to make your project successful, who do you have to bring along and make the case for on your team? Okay, Carol. Let me see if I could I mute Carol? Loud.
I will. Carol, go ahead. I had to grab my executive, and I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Carol, I just muted you. I'm sorry about that.
All right, but we heard from Carol that she executive was one who she had to advocate to and with. Deborah.
Me, as I'm working on my project and wanting to bring more values into the sports and wellness department, for me, I feel like I have to convince the other sports and wellness supervisors who may or may not be Jewish.
Right. You want them to agree in concept and in the practicalities. Might we conceivably have to advocate? Me. I could unmute people. Yeah.
Go ahead.
To not only talk to my executive director, but I'm creating online programming, and I'm with a local synagogue to reach out to rabbis at a local synagogue and get them to buy this and want to do it with me. And that was challenging. It wasn't actually that hard. I was much harder than it was.
Mm-hmm. So you see, had to go beyond the walls of the day and into another organization to advocate. Yeah. I'm not sure everyone heard, but to advocate with a local or for to a local rabbi and make the case. Mm-hmm. Great. Let's take. There are three hands up. Let's take Jennifer, then Lynn, then Rochelle. How's that? So Jennifer.
Jennifer.
Mine's very similar to Amy. I had to go to synagogue members and rabbinical support to gain for them to help build my team, specifically leaders and other educators in the area to help. So kind of to Amy as well as my exec and supervisor.
Great. Thank you. Lynn. Mark, can you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lynn.
Good morning. I brought along a whole group of artists as part, who were doing a group show in our gallery, and convinced them, I guess, to sort of add a Jewish theme to the show that they were doing, to make it Rosh Hashanah oriented, to make it environmentally significant, to allow me to put a display case of other interpretive materials along with the show, and they were really generous about sharing the space, sharing the time, sharing the exhibit. And we also brought in local environmental educators and, again, a rabbi, another congregation. So it really turned into a very large collaborative endeavor.
Very nice. Thank you. And a comment from Rochelle.
First, I had to work with my exec director, and then the other kind of like my level managers, because my practice was working with all of the staff. I had to first start with them, and then on board staff, and then everybody else's staff. And I haven't yet done the rabbi part, but I'm going to also be speaking with them as well. So a whole lot.
Great, thank you. Mark, we put them back on. Here we go. Thank you. I sometimes think of advocacy of this sort as 360 degrees plus, that we have to advocate to those higher up on the organizational chart, our boss, superior, executive director, supervisor. We advocate to your peers, the other people at my level who have to also be on board with me implementing this. We also have to advocate to our direct reports. We have to, we want them to go along with this, not because I told you so, but because they see the importance of what's going on. And I say 360 plus is because you heard all the examples of advocating even beyond your organization, that you're looking at, rabbis, lay people, et cetera, who are in the community. And with appreciation to Clarfeld, who was our scholar in residence last year, who shared some of these ideas, I am going to that we look together at two examples of biblical advocacy. And I think my message is that it sometimes is intimidating to advocate to our exec or to a rabbi, but we could even study someone who went higher up the organizational chart, actually two people who went higher up the organizational chart and actually advocated to God. And, it's fairly high in the organizational chart. So what we're going to do, Mark mentioned that we're going to have two different groupings. So what we're going to do is, here's a little aside. What we're going to do is called a jigsaw. That's the very technical term for it. A jigsaw, just like a jigsaw puzzle, where you rearrange the pieces. Basically, you're going to meet in pairs. You're going to group that studies the Sodom and Gomorrah story, the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and move to it. And we're going to have another group, a set of pairs, that study the golden calf story. We're due after 15 minutes, and I'll give you some guiding questions, etc. Reshuffle the groups. And someone who studied the Sodom and Gomorrah story is going to regroup with someone who studied the golden calf story and going to compare notes. So what that means, and some guiding questions for that. So what that means is that when you are in your first group studying either the golden calf or Sodom and Gomorrah, both people should come out of the group being ready to kind of give a report to someone else. So in a minute, Mark will show you the groupings. I want to just set the stage a little bit. Sodom and Gomorrah, this comes from text that's early on. It's in the book of Genesis. And, I don't think I'm giving away the ending. We'll say that Abraham, who's advocating to God, may not have the outcome he was hoping for, because as you know, Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed. I'm sorry if that was the spoiler, but I think it's important. It's not in the text that you're going to read, but you keep in mind that that's what happened. And then we have the golden calf, obviously later on in Exodus, after Moses goes up the mountain, the golden calf is built. God becomes very upset, and Moses had to advocate on behalf of the people. And as you'll see in your reading, there is some success there. So what I'm going to do is, for both groups, you have the following questions. With your pair, text. Gomorrah is the Sodom and Gomorrah text. The golden calf pairs, it's the golden calf text. Then answer these three questions. What techniques are used to persuade? What techniques is Abraham using? Or what techniques is Moses using? The outcome. And then what do we learn from the use of these tactics in the story? What generalizations can we make about advocacy from stories? So you see the pairs there who are going to study the Sodom and Gomorrah together?
To chime in, Meredith and Sarah are not with us. I'm not sure if Natalie is. So Natalie, Natalie is not, but if Natalie is, then Natalie is with Lynn. Otherwise, I'll ask Shelley to partner with Lynn. So why don't I ask Shelley to partner with Lynn, and then if I can, if Natalie's around too, we'll figure that out. But have Lynn just partner with Shelley, everything else as is.
So that's the Sodom and Gomorrah group. The golden calf groups are here. Sorry. Questions except the golden calf text and not the other text. We say 12 minutes or so, or
12:57 on the Eastern Time Zone. Why don't you break out now, and when you see 1:10 or 12:10 or 11:10 or 10:10, 10 after the hour, come back together. And we're going to do a short, full check-in before we do breakout 2. So break out into your partners, one again shortly, and then the sir right there. Yeah.
The text, I only see one text. I only see Sodom and Gomorrah up.
You scroll. So you go to the text sheet, Sodom and Gomorrah. If you go to page 3, then you golden calf.
So on our site, I think.
Correct. All right. So
to scroll through those pages.
They have the permission to go back and forth as they wish. So just to show one more time, these are the groups for Group A. Leonard meeting with Shelley. The groups for Group B, and you see 3 questions. Go over to the text, and we'll see you all 10 of the hour. So if you who are watching the recording, we're currently in breakout 1. We're doing a jigsaw, as Jeff explained. We're doing that are just talking about the Sodom and Gomorrah text and the advocacy behind it, the 3 questions. Then groups that are just talking about the golden calf text, we're going to check in briefly so you can fast forward ahead to that short conversation. And then we're going to break out again where folks that were now becoming experts on the Sodom and Gomorrah text report onto the golden calf text and vice versa. So we're at 12:59 Eastern time as I'm saying this, so we're going to let this conversation go for about 10 minutes. Anything you want to touch base on, or should we 10 minutes and we'll touch base?
No, we'll touch base in 10 minutes, I think. Assuming the pairs are worked and we're okay.
The only thing that I think is worth mentioning, or I can mention or encourage them in the group conversation, is the responses they gave on the Google site. I found them to be very rich. And the different examples. Adam talked about, the head coach he used to work with. Rochelle talked about her son. The executive directors of JCC. So it's interesting to see where advocacy can come from. Them incorporate or will incorporate.
Right. Good. Okay. Thanks.
So just quick announcement, we're about halfway into the subroute edition of Breakout 1, our JELI Webinar 9 on advocacy. We have our two different sets of pairs, one talking about the questions you see on the screen about the text around Sodom and Gomorrah and advocating to God, specifically Abraham advocating to God, as well as the second set of groups talking specifically about the golden calf text and the advocacy of Moses in that regard. So we're going to briefly check in about that as a full group at about 1:10, 1:11, and then Eastern Time, and then we're going to do a second breakout where the Sodom and Gomorrah discussion partner with one person from the golden calf, different folks, and kind of report back to each other. So check back in a few minutes or just forward a little bit. Wonderful. I'm done with your conversation. Just let me know. I see that Adam and Jeremy are done. That's great. Monica, partner is done. Okay. Were you able to connect? I know both of you were trying to connect with me, saying we were trying to connect with each other. So let me know. And if not, then we'll we'll type it as a group. Just back, I have 109, so you have another minute or two. Let me just here's Adam and Jimmy. We have Monica and Jen. And Karen, thank you both. Great. Okay. All right. Deborah and Stephanie. For Amy and Rochelle, if you're back, and Shelley. Everybody. So we'll wait 30 seconds to a minute or so, and then Jeff has control. So I'm going to let him. Jeff, hold on, you're still muted. Wait. Jeff, you're on. Oh. Yeah, sorry about that.
All right, no problem. Hopefully everyone is or will soon be back on. Now, that was phase one of the jigsaw. You have become experts. Each pair has become expert in their text, Golhalf or Gomorrah. We'll take just a minute or two not to share out what the groups talked about, because that's the next phase of the jigsaw. You're going to share with someone in the other group. But were there any clarifying questions, facts that were unclear, pressing confusion, that kind of thing? I see Jennifer. Is this list? Unmute Jennifer.
Yeah.
Oh, I still had my hand raised from before. I'm lowering it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, no problem. Okay.
Sorry.
No. Any other clarifying questions?
Adam Chaskin.
Oh, Adam. I didn't see Adam. Yes.
Adam, I think you called in. Hold on one second. I think you called in separate to your audio. So let me just mute the calling users. Yeah, gotcha.
Just two quick questions. Were we, in our evaluation, answering the question, stop where the text stopped, or include knowledge of what we know the outcome was? The answer.
Right. You should include the knowledge of what the outcome was, which is part of why I did the spoiler for Sodom and Gomorrah being destroyed. So we know Abraham's was we can call unsuccessful, Moses successful. I mean, that's a simplification of some type, but yes. Sure. Thanks.
Supposed to be in our second group yet?
Not yet. We're all together as one large group for the next seconds.
Okay.
All right. So the next phase goes like this. You are now, we'll show you the pairs in a minute, but you're going to meet with someone who had the other text. And you should do the following. Summary of what you read and the things you learned about advocacy from your text. You each had different texts. Then compare and contrast. How did they differ? Which is what you saw in the TED Talk, and how did you use these things in the workplace? And then at the end, after you've had your discussion, what advice do you take away to use for advocacy in the future? And sum it up on a whiteboard. So basically, we're reshuffling. You meeting with someone who is expert in the other text, and you're comparing notes and addressing these questions. So and we'll do another 15.
Another 15, and Jeff and Shelley and myself, be aware, because we're going to be part of pairs. And just, in about 5 to 7 minutes into the Chavruta, I'm going to post the whiteboard. So if you feel comfortable to start jotting notes on the whiteboard, as we've done in the past, or hold your comments, and I'll post them as we speak in a large group discussion. But we encourage you to whiteboard on your own, so when we get back to the group, there's already some active notes.
Mark, is there a way to get to whoever you partner me with without having to find a phone number and get off of this system?
Partner you with somebody, and you'll be able to just speak with them directly. Let me get to that right now.
Okay.
So, does everyone can see the reshuffled pairings? Carol and Stephanie.
Where are they?
Came back. There you go. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So Carol and Stephanie, you're good to go. Jen and Deborah, you're good to go. Leah, you are going to be with Jeff. Jeff, you're going to be with Leah. And I know Leah had a difficulty connecting with Howie or Howie with Leah. So just make sure you have the right phone number or speak over chat.
Okay.
Shelly.
Yep.
Shelly, you're going to be with Howie. So exchange phone numbers or speak over chat. And Rel, you're going to be with me. Means that I will be in a partner, so I won't be able to necessarily navigate, technical issues. If you send me a chat, I'll try to break from talking to Rochelle, but I want Rochelle and I to chat for a little bit. So go into your second groups. When you have your groups, we'll put those 5 things up. 5, then I'll put the whiteboard up. And 1:15 Eastern, so aim to be back by about 1:30, which will give us a good 15 minutes of group discussion after that. So 1:30, be back. Go to your next partner. I'll text you my cell phone. That's better. I'll call you, Rochelle, and I'll mute myself from the WebEx. Here.
Howie?
Going very well.
There's Howie Zuberg.
How's Birmingham treating you? Good. Good to hear.
We go second, Chavruta. If you're watching this on recording, I'm going to be actually in the partner group now as well. So fast forward about 10 minutes and hear the larger group. All of you watching on recording, we've been in our second Chevruta, the jigsaw pairs, for the last 10, 15 minutes or so. I was actually paired with Rochelle Reich, so I wasn't able to narrate every so often through this break. And I now have the whiteboard on the screen. I took the presenter tools back so I can put the whiteboard up. And just so you have to click on the text AA to the left, and then put your cursor wherever you want on the whiteboard so you can add your response. It's 1:29. So for those of you who are live and you can see me, start coming back. I'll give kind of a 2-minute warning so we get back together at 1:31 or so. And then we'll hear what advice do you take away in the future when you need to advocate. You know, we've been talking about the Sodom and Gomorrah text. We've been talking about the text. We've been hopefully watched the TED Talk from Nancy Dwart. Many of you, most of you responded to the Google site pre-webinar document, a pre-webinar assignment of example of personal and professional example of your advocacy experiences. So what do we all take away from this? Folks, come on back. We're ready, and we'll have some group conversation. If you're on recording, you can hear the takeaways on the working. So about in a minute, we'll get people back up, and you can see some of the whiteboarding coming up on your screen. I want to see if you're back, if you're back on the phone. Hey, Jeff. Just so a technical, I know everyone can hear. Jeff, I took back the presenter role because when at the presenter, I can change for me, but not for anybody else. So people were saying, "Where's that whiteboard you put up?" So I got to pick the presenter role back. Give it back to you, or if you want me to move back to the PowerPoint.
You can present. No, that's fine. We could leave it like this.
Okay, and then I can go back to the PowerPoint later. But we are getting we're already getting a lot of posts. Thank you, everybody, for sharing some of your takeaways, and I'll have Jeff facilitate a large group conversation now. I think most of you are back, but if you haven't told you're back, just shoot me a chat. But we'll have Jeff get started in a few seconds.
Okay. I'm really happy that I actually got paired this time. It was really nice to talk to Leah and hear her perspective on this too. The thing that we both started with is that these are both terrific stories in we could imagine these conversations. It's well to think someone's having a conversation with God, but like these kind of binding conversations or, what would other people say? These are the arguments and discussions that are in a way very, very present and true to life. I want to focus in the next maybe 10 minutes or so on some of the advice that you brought out. Now, I think that the one piece of advice to start with is you could advocate with anyone. If you could advocate with God, you could advocate with anyone. And the idea that we had a successful advocation with God is really remarkable. So I want if we can have a group raise your hand and give us a little bit of 2 or 3 lines about what you wrote up here on the whiteboard. Maybe we'll start at the top. Advocacy and building consensus. Our communal whiteboard. What advice? Know your audience. Know your audience to use narrative as a compelling tool. So where did you see that in the text?
Me and Rochelle, and I want to add that this is the actually the first time that I actually was paired with somebody, and that was really fun. Usually it's just a lot of silence while you're all talking and having a good time. But I'm going to volunteer Rochelle to speak on behalf of our group.
Okay. So we were just talking about how it's different, I think how we say it, different approaches were, different terms of what was going on, and that the bargaining didn't work in with God, but the kind of more flashy and emotive behavior or persuasion technique that was in the Golden Calf story did work, at least on the short term. So, one approach was effective, and the other one wasn't. So that's what we're saying. Your audience changes and their minds and as well, and you just need to kind of adjust where they're at.
Okay.
And they used, and at least in the Golden Calf one, we were talking about using narrative, and also in the tech, a lot of narrative, and Steve Jobs used narrative, and so how that was very compelling, and compelling kind of brings you along in a way that it's not actual and not a visual part or whatever, or just something very emotive. At least some term emotive will work. So.
Great. Thanks. Another Know Your Audience. We're beginning to get some convergent data here. Knowing your audience is something that we could definitely pull out. I don't know who wrote the second Know Your Audience and Situations. If you want to add just to that, just raise your hand.
Jeremy.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
For me, the Know Your Audience and Situations was, clearly the audience was the same. It was God in both cases, but it was also, just knowing the situations and how to appeal to that person. Are you appealing to something about them? Are you appealing to something about, an event that occurred, but just kind of recognizing and knowing what you're really having to argue for, what angle to take.
Right. Tailoring the argument to the person and the situation. There's not a generic kind of, you may have to have a bunch of different kind of stump speeches, as they were, about your project. Great. Thanks. I'm going to skip being because it's a good existential comment, but I'm not sure if something's missing there. Appeal to their better nature, use ethical and moral arguments. Someone.
So that was mine. Shelley and I had a discussion about the techniques that Abraham used with God, and over he's giving God the opportunity to make the right choice. He's appealing to his sense of justice, to his sense of righteousness, and as Shelley pointed out, if you go back up top and you talk about Abraham's covenant with God, the Lord says, Abraham will be a great and powerful nation, and so he will direct his children and his household to keep the Lord by doing what is right and just. And then what happens is that Abraham then takes that and turns it back around and says, well, these whole cities to the ground doesn't sound like something you do if there are righteous people, still there with them. And I thought this text was an interesting choice, given outcome, the spoiler alert that that Jeff alluded to. But it said, there is one righteous family. There are 6 people. So even though Abraham bargains God all the way down, from 50 to 10, well, even if there are 10 righteous people remaining, would you still, smite them? God go a little bit further. There is an element of success here. Like Abraham doesn't say the entire community, but are spared. And that's an interesting twist.
You could even say, well, something to learn from that is ask for more than you might even expect.
We'll leave a little room for compromise in there, right?
Right, exactly. That my project will need $100,000 budget. Then $15,000 is fine then.
Exactly.
All right, great. Thanks. I have a couple of people with believe in it. We have someone on the left. We have a Brown on the right. I don't want to make a comment about believing in what you're advocating for or believing in it.
Muted, Jen Zislis.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. Deborah and I spoke about how important it is to believe in what you're advocating for, and between the TED Talk and the readings, that Abraham believed that these people were righteous. Moses believed he was doing the right thing, and when you go forward with your project or whatever you're going to do, that directness, that honest component to it just plays such a big factor, and the more that you are part of it, the better it would be.
Thanks. You also part of the group that wrote "Don't Make Decisions for Other People"?
No.
Okay. I'm interested in hearing just a word or two about what that meant also, if there's someone who can call in. Thank you, Jen.
Sure.
Make decisions, or anyone that's left, be persistent, understand the motivating factors, any of those groups. I also have my group with Leah. I want to give other people a chance to jump in too.
Fill your hand or start chatting if you already have it open. Oh, Deborah.
I met with Gen Z, and I wrote on here, be direct and honest in a respectful manner. I felt like they were,
okay.
Yeah, on top of each other. But I like that was the case in both readings, and that is definitely what I aspire to do, as my CEO asked me for 100% honesty. And I find that I often have to tone that into a respectful manner
mm-hmm.
when I am expressing my honesty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Jeff, sorry.
No, I was going to ask if anyone else had their hand up.
Yeah, not making decisions for people, sort of guiding them. That was something I wrote. Abraham, and I think it was this too. They both that sort of make the decision, even though they sort of guided along what they thought if they had.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't just tell. You didn't just say it. You just kind of, there was more of a guidance to the.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, back to this idea of matching your appeal to your audience. There's a real power dynamic there that, much like we have power dynamics, that we have to be sensitive to. And there are ways to, in a way, no one wants you to make decisions for them, but certainly as you're kind of moving up the chain of command, you kind of want people to kind of come along, not be kind of schlepped along, more forcibly. Do you want to comment on the discussion that we had and what we wrote?
Right. Yeah, go ahead.
As regarding just the advocacy perspective, just we talk about acknowledging the other person's perspective. So in both scenarios, they acknowledge that there's a problem, but they move forward. I think that's something you have to deal. You can't just sweep things under the rug. But you sort of have to focus on the positive, get them off the negative, and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say.
All right, great, thanks. So to move, sometimes people get stuck in the way they're doing things now, or get stuck in negatives, and part of advocacy might be sharing a positive vision that moves people beyond that. We also talked about being prepared, and how you can contrast Abraham, who you might say didn't capitalize on data. He didn't know how many people there were, and in fact, he weakened his argument with each number. Where you say, well, 45, and God says, there's not 45. That kind of him down and weakens the argument. He doesn't have the data. Moses, on the other hand, he read the minutes from previous meetings, and he was able to quote God back and say, remember, when you said you swore by your own self. So he's able to use the data, use the minutes of previous meetings to make the argument. And this is a really wonderful list of advice. We see some converging points. And last comments before we turn to do more housekeeping and look forward to St. Louis.
Thanks, Jeff. If you haven't had a chance to review many of the comments of your fellows on the Google site, it's interesting to see where advocacy can come from. We're looking at two leaders in Abraham and Moses, and we're thinking about ourselves as leaders. But, advocacy can come from your 8-year-old son, and it could come from, a coach on a basketball team or an assistant coach. It can come from one of you people that work for you. And I think as much as we can study and study these very historical, biblical, traditional advocacy case studies, you all presented, numerous fantastic studies that I appreciated, and I want you all to appreciate reading through them, thinking about the TED Talk, and now in our conversation today. So if you haven't had a chance to kind of read each other's work and each other's case studies, I encourage you to do that because it's very enlightening and illuminating in preparation for today's discussion.
Great. Thank you, Mark, and thank you to the rest of you as well for really diving into these rich texts and drawing out very concrete pieces of advice and lessons to be learned. And see you in St. Louis.
First of all, Jim, thank you. Thank you for preparing the content of this webinar. Thank you for facilitating. Always a pleasure to learn from you, as I have.
And thank you, Mark. I should point out that the logistics, I like doing jigsaws, but the logistics are really tough. So thank you, Mark, for shuffling and reshuffling on the fly.
Well, a pleasure to work with you and with all of you. You see my Meet Me in St. Louis agenda. Before I do that, I'm usually really good at acknowledging birthdays, but the last month or so I haven't been, and we've had a slew of JELI birthdays. So I don't have a slide for this, but Rochelle on September 30th, Adam on October 3rd, Leah and Sarah on October 8th, Amy on October 16th, and upcoming Deborah on 11/1. If I missed anyone, let me know. A collective happy birthday. Maybe we'll celebrate in St. Louis in person, but just wanted to recognize your celebrations. And of course, this addition to JELI, maybe JELI Cohort 45, Jesse Pepper's new child, who is escaping me. But I'll put this all in an email. I just wanted to say a collective happy birthday, or Jesse, welcome to the world. All of us minus Jesse will be in St. Louis. Obviously, she is on leave with very important reasons, but is still very much a part of our JELI community. So happy birthday collectively. And if we had time, we'd sing. Maybe we'll do it in St. Louis. Speaking of St. Louis, I wanted to share with you the pre-retreat, the actual retreat booklet. I keep calling it a pre-retreat booklet, but it's really the booklet for the retreat. You're just getting it a few weeks earlier to review. And we'll review kind of what you need to do as we go through. This is a 25-page booklet, so I don't expect you to read it as I go through it, but just to prime your viewing. It is up on the Google site, and I will send it as an attachment to the follow-up to this webinar. You'll read an introductory letter, information about the hotel and how to get there, travel once we're there, the packing list. It's similar setup to the Birmingham booklet. I want to focus on a couple of specific pages. The first is page 5, which are the pre-readings and assignments. Now, recognizing that we're only 3 weeks away, the readings are not overly intense, but we do want you to familiarize yourselves with some of the organizations we're going to be interacting with, either their leaders or their actual places over the course of the week. Central Reform Congregation, Meyerowitz Community Day School, the St. Louis JCC, examples. There's others, but these are the sites we want you to review because we are going to be talking about them or with them as case studies around change. And advocacy is, very close to the things of change and how do we make change happen and how do we navigate change that we're really going to be digging deep in St. Louis, and these webinars have been a precursor to that. So we ask you to review the pre-readings, which are not that long, and are more light than others. And then there's a pre-assignment that we're giving you 2 weeks to do. We want you to specifically look at the 4 pre-readings reviewing the web materials of the organizations that we show you. CFC, the Community Day School, St. Louis JCC, and the Building Jewish Community. And we want you to write a 1 to 2 page response. It can be as short as 1 page, but we encourage you to write more if you want to. And we first ask you to pick 2 of those institutions and see if you can write down from what you see. You may have to dig a little bit. What's the vision of change for you think, or what was their vision in changing, the challenges that they may have encountered, and the strategies for making that change happen. And I want you to share 1 initiative at UACC or local community. It could be your project, but doesn't have to be. What vision for change? Anything you're doing is some kind of change. What challenge do you have in overcoming the change, and what are the actual or potential strategies for making change happen successfully? So I want you to do some thinking and some kind of pre-reflecting through the assignment. Send it to me a week before the retreat. Much of this is going to be huge to our conversation throughout the week, specifically on our first night. We're going to be interacting with a lot of these leaders. So I wanted to focus on page 5. And to get your birthday wrong, it is March 20th. I don't know why I thought it was October 3rd. Happy birthday upcoming. We'll celebrate at the professional conference. The next big thing, so that's your pre-assignment. That's 1 piece we want you to prep for before St. Louis. The next is your project presentation and consultation. This is like a lot of text. Most of it is not to prep for. We wanted to give you specific protocol. And Jeff's going to go over this while we're in St. Louis on that Tuesday. We're going to have this session. Instead of feeling the need to present a full 15 or even 10 minutes on your project work, we want you to come with some highlights of what you've been working on and then a couple of key questions that you want to get feedback from. You're all in process. So as you review this document, you'll notice that you're going to have 6 minutes to present in a group of several other fellows. You're not going to present to the whole group, but kind of a mini cohort within the cohort. And then we're going to have a protocol that's going to allow you to get feedback on your work from your fellows and bring that back to your JCC. So both practice and presentation, also sort of an opportunity to get feedback so you can strengthen your work as a result of liaising with the JELI cohort in this way. So review page 6 as well. Those are one of the 2 key pages for you to review prior to St. Louis. Everything else is really for your viewing pleasure to get kind of a sneak into what we'll be doing. No need to memorize everything, but you'll get a sense of our summary and our major themes, both for the retreat and reiterating our JELI themes and our retreat objectives. There's a 2-page schedule, so if you want to cut and dry, what are we going to be doing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you can check that out. We'll do some travel on Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday west to the JCC campus and Wednesday east to downtown St. Louis and then back to the JCC. And we're staying in this wonderful neighborhood of the Central West End. I know Jeremy knows St. Louis very well. I'm staying in a wonderful place, the Chase Park Plaza. We'll have kind of a nice home base neighborhood while we're there. So you can get the 2-page schedule, and then to read a little more, you'll have the detailed schedule. You'll notice I assigned caregivers to some of you, so you'll help us out a little bit, making sure people are on the bus and have what they need. You'll basically support me and Joy in some of the logistics. So you'll see the caregivers for each day. You should know already if you're doing a warm-up activity or a Devar Torah, you can liaise with me beforehand so I can get a sense of what you're either going to be speaking about or doing and materials you may need. You can meet some of the leaders that we're going to be meeting with, Susan Talvey, Rabbi Susan Talvey, Rabbi Chaim Schaffner, the 2 major synagogues there, head of St. Louis Hillel, head of the Community Day School. We're getting a lot of leaders to come to speak with us. We're really, really excited about that. Of course, Lynn Whittles, the executive director of the JCC in St. Louis, and Rabbi Brad Horowitz, who's not only the director of Jewish Life, but is a JTS and a Davidson graduate. So really excited to be working with someone very close to the Davidson family as well. Note that on Thursday, we do not have a warm-up person or a Devar Torah. So if you haven't given your Devar Torah yet or wouldn't have by Wednesday of St. Louis, we'd love to have one more of you sign up to give your Devar Torah on Thursday. Talk to me about that. Send me an email. And one more person to do the warm-up. If you've done it already, you can do it again, but want to make sure everyone gets a chance. So you can review that. There are some specific pages about the May evening program and what we're going to be doing. Feel free to read it, but we'll explain it on the spot. And how we're going to frame our Tuesday time at the JCC, the tour we're going to have, the people we're going to be meeting with, a lot of the professional staff, etc. We're going to do a similar cohort challenge, like it in Birmingham, with a little bit of a twist, using our JELI themes as the center and not so much the retreat themes, but being able for us to kind of coalesce and synthesize all the learning we've done over the course of that week. Please to speak bios, because we want you to walk in knowing who you're going to be interacting with. Really not going to be having too many addresses. It's going to be a lot of back and forth discussion. There might be some addendums that you'll get beforehand, specifically on our Wednesday tour. And we're going to be really excited to join the St. Louis Jewish Book Festival. This is like the huge event in the St. Louis JCC. So we'll really get to see a fairly big JCC do a very big event action, and going to their keynote presentation, which for those of you who are World Series and baseball fans, it's going to be on Jews and baseball. So we're excited about that. And of course, we're going to encourage you to reflect after each of our sessions. So we have the reflection handout there as well. So feel free to review the booklet. Definitely to focus on pages 5 and pages 6, and be in touch with your pre-retreat assignments. Email them to me a week prior and prepare for your project presentation. 2 and number 3. Agree to speak with your advisors. This between now and November 8th. I would love for all of you to have a conversation with your advisors between now and then, if possible, unless one happened very recently, of what your expectations are going up to this retreat. We're going to be joined by Rabbi Jennifer Tobinstein and by, who I believe is on the webinar right now, and Ronit who will both be leading sessions for us Tuesday and Wednesday, respectively. So we're excited that they'll be joining us. Of course, Joy, David, Jeff, and I will be there. And we will see you in the Central Park Plaza Library no later than 2:30 p.m. The week prior to the retreat, I will email select groups of, if all of you are flying in within the same hour, encouraging you to take a cab together or traveling together to the hotel. And if anyone has extenuating circumstances, I already know about them. If you're have to arrive a little later, leave a little early, we'll be coordinating with you. But I think the vast majority of you are, joining us at the beginning and ending with us at the end. So please be transparent and email with me or communicative with me if there's any extenuating issues. I believe that's all. I'll open it for any burning questions that you want to answer to the whole cohort. Lynn, your hand is up. I'm not sure if that's in relation to my immense of information that I'm sharing. I need visuals for our presentation. Great question. You do not, but if you like so, if you want to bring handouts, you're more than welcome to. I haven't specifically requested AV equipment, but if you'd like it, I can ask. Keeping in mind that you only have 6 minutes, and it's not necessarily to present everything that you're doing, but in more of a consultation mode. So,
could I jump in that while a presentation like a PowerPoint or something may be too much for the 6 minutes, you might consider bringing a handout that describes a few of the elements of your project to hand around to your small group. You wouldn't have to bring a lot of copies. What is it, 6 per group or something like that, so that you can go through the information, and if you don't get to something, at least it's on the paper for people. It's not required.
Right. And then if you do have a handout, either bring copies for everyone or send it to me, at least a week ahead of time so I can make copies here. I'm happy to do that. For those of you that just replied to me over comments, I'll reply back before we end the meeting. If there are burning questions, please let me know. You will get the post-webinar email with the booklet, hopefully by the end of the day today, if not by first thing tomorrow. And see you in St. Louis. So excited that it's been almost 9 months since we've been all together in Birmingham, or will have been 9 months. And really happy to join the St. Louis, to join a JELI cohort together at the Gateway to the West in 3 weeks' time. And we'll be going up that arch. So you'll get a much better picture than the one that's in front of you. Thank you very much, everyone. That is all for our webinar today, so feel free to sign off. And see you in a few weeks. signing off, we'll just say to those watching on recording, has been JELI Cohort 2, Webinar 9, October 21st, 2014. Advocacy and building consensus in our work, especially as we work on our projects, our independent learning projects. And we ended our webinar with See in St. Louis, our third for JELI retreats, talking about making change in 3 weeks' time. So this webinar recording will be available shortly. Thank you all for joining us.